And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 90th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, May 28th, 2019, where I am your host, Matthew Lukens. You can catch us on our live broadcast Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. on our YouTube page or on our website, indianahq.com. If you miss our live broadcast, you can subscribe to our show for free on whatever platform you listen to podcasts so you can listen on your own free time. Check out our Twitter and Facebook at the Hoosier Sound and at Indiana HQ. Subscribe and turn that bell on for notifications. All the information is on our website, indianahq.com. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some Indiana University sports talk. So, on the docket tonight, the long summer hours are upon us. We have a mini-series we like to do every summer. For one episode, we'll talk about each incoming class for both football and basketball and break down who is there and what they can contribute. This week, as far as the class goes, we're going to be talking about the seniors class because, of course, it's their last year for both football and basketball. So here with me tonight, while Noah is obviously away, he'll be back next week, hopefully, but is Nithin. Say hi, Nithin.
Hello, everyone.
And so, yeah, we're just going to crack right into this. So we're going to start with football first. We'll leave the much smaller subsection of the two, basketball, for later. So starting in football and starting with wide receivers, our first senior we're going to talk about is Donovan Hale. So Nithin, I'll let you start off the podcast on our first bit of substance. So what do you expect from Donovan Hale this season? You expect a step up or a step down, or what are you looking at?
No, fair question. And I'm glad to be joining you guys again this week. The podcast had a really nice episode last Tuesday with Brian Tonsoni. He was able to kind of walk you through the baseball situation and look,
yeah.
Well, I didn't know exactly how to term it because it was kind of leading into the Big Ten tournament last week, and there was also conversation about the NCAA tournament, the team in general. So really, it was kind of an all-in-one NCAA and IU baseball podcast, and I really enjoy listening to it. I thought you guys did a good job, and it's still useful. You can listen to it in the days to come as you prepare for IU baseball's participation in NCAA tournament, which is starting Friday afternoon. But your question was about Donovan Hale. And Hale, along with Nick Westbrook, are a couple of senior receivers that are going to be part, if not most, of the focal point of the passing attack this year. Both guys accumulated over 500 receiving yards last season. Mm-hmm. Hale specifically had 42 catches for 508 yards, and he led the team with 6 receiving touchdowns. So if you're looking for a guy who, by the way, was a Kevin Wilson recruit as a defensive back, if you're looking for someone who's really going to take a step up next season, I think it's going to be Hale. He's a Florida kid. He's fast. He's athletic. Okay, I like that. All right. Are you from Largo? That's where he's from. Where are you from?
No, I am definitely not from Largo. Largo is the other coast. He's West Coast. East Coast.
Is there some sort of rivalry?
No. This is not actually East Coast, West Coast. It's just
all right. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But this is a guy. Look, he's a Florida kid. He's fast. He's athletic. The IU roster has him at 6'4", 225 pounds. That'll do in the Big Ten. You better believe whether it's Peyton Ramsey, Mike Penix, or Jack Tuttle at quarterback, Donovan Hale is going to be a prime target in the offense. He's going to be on one end of the field. On the other side on the boundary is going to be Nick Westbrook. And we can almost talk about both guys at once. Westbrook's a 6'3", 216-pound receiver. He's from Lake Mary, Florida. Is that near you?
No. All these guys are West Coast or like Orlando area. They're not
So that's where the football players are. The podcasters are where
The
you're from.
podcasters are down south. They're in the cooler part of Florida.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, I was just curious. I don't know anything about the state of Florida, as you guys can tell. Westbrook is a guy who we've heard of a few times, over the course of the last few seasons. He, as I mentioned earlier, accumulated over 500 receiving yards last year. He led the team, in fact, with 590, a few more than Hale's 508.
Mm-hmm.
But for a guy who's big and strong like Westbrook at 6'3", I'm expecting him to have more than 4 touchdowns next season. He only had 4 last year. We've seen that Westbrook is capable of putting up crooked numbers. In fact, in his sophomore season, he had 995 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. He also tacked another one on rushing. So if Westbrook and Hale can really step up their senior year, their 5th-year seniors, in fact, it partly is incumbent on the quarterback to get them the football, but those are 2 guys that can really either help IU's offense take a major step forward under new offensive coordinator Kalen DeBoer, or if they stagnate or if they struggle, you might see IU have a tough time putting up points on the board.
Absolutely, I agree with everything you said. Of course, I actually think Nick Westbrook will be will be the better of the 2. Donovan Hale, I just think Nick kind of got the short end of the stick last year. But he averaged more yards per catch than Donovan did, at 14 compared to Donovan's 12, and 14 really stands out on this chart because I think the next closest was Ty Freifogel with 13.1, but he only had 29 catches, whereas Nick had 42. So Nick was really trying to get down the field a lot more, running routes down the field a lot more than Donovan was. But yeah, I just expect something from Nick Westbrook in his senior year, especially with all the stuff he's gone through. More than I expect from Donovan Hale, even though Donovan Hale had one heck of a year last year. So.
Yeah, and just for those of you who may have forgotten, Westbrook was the receiver who 2 years ago suffered a season-ending injury on the first play of the season against Ohio State. That was the big ESPN game, national TV at Memorial Stadium, and that really set IU's offense back. So last year he was sort of able to get his groove back going. And this coming season, I think a lot of folks are expecting him to get back to the level he was in a sophomore year, where he was 1,000-yard, 6-7 touchdown kind of player.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to move on to the offensive line. For the offensive line, I think we'll do everybody at once. So we have 4 senior offensive linemen. We have Coy Cronk, Hunter Littlejohn, Stefan Stepaniak. God, that last name is terrible, so hard to pronounce. And Devondre Love. So the 4 of them, I'll start this off a little bit. I know Coy Cronk's going to be good. I know Hunter Littlejohn will be good. And Stepaniak has been hit or miss through his IU career, you could say. But I feel like as a senior, he'll be kind of a rock, or at least somebody we can rotate around. But I've never seen Devondre Love play. So I highly doubt that he will get a lot of playing time. But, he's a senior. He's a grown man. I'm sure, being an offensive lineman, that he can come in and do a job if there's an injury on the line. But, that's as far as the 4 of them. You got anything to add to that?
Well, and you see that, don't you, in college football or the NFL or whatever? Guys get hurt. And right now, it seems like the projections are that Kronk, Littlejohn, and Stepaniak will all start for IU next year. Like you said, Devondre Love may not start, but we see it time and time again. Guys have all sorts of random, things happen, injuries and suspensions and all that kind of stuff. So you better believe Devondre Love will be ready to go. He appeared in 11 games of sophomore season, 4 games last year. Shout out to both Love and I believe Stepaniak. I think both of those guys graduated earlier this month.
Nice.
they're staying on the team with the program in their 5th year. In fact, Devondre Love was a little bit uncertain about how things were going to go, and then recently he announced, along with IU football coach Tom Allen, that Love would return for his 5th year. So clearly he is enjoying his time in Bloomington. He likes where this coaching staff is leading the team. But I've kind of buried the lead here. I want to mention one thing, and that is, I don't know if this is a real controversial opinion.
Yeah,
I think Coy Cronk is this team's most valuable player.
I mean, that's not too much of a hot take, I don't think. But explain.
Well, it's just, sure, fantasy football doesn't have offensive linemen or defensive linemen, but you can look around the country. Teams like Alabama and Clemson dominate in the trenches. And if you've got great protection for your quarterback, you've got great blocking for your backs and receivers on those screen passes, that can really help your team out. And Coy Cronk is a guy who started 36 games in his first 3 seasons at IU. He's only missed 1. So when you talk about a guy who's durable, and when you talk about a guy who really helped Stevie Scott last year have a robust season running the football, Cronk is such a key player for this team. He's an in-state guy. He's the starting left tackle. In the NFL, a lot of times you hear the guys you need the most in order to build your franchise are the quarterback, the guys who protect the quarterback, and the guys who rush the quarterback. And Cronk definitely fits the billing as the guy who's going to play left tackle and protect whoever is the quarterback for IU next season, whether it's Ramsey, Penix, or Tuttle. Do you think Cronk is the most valuable guy on the team? I know I said it may be a little bit controversial. Would there be somebody else that you would pick, senior or not?
I mean, I'm always going to be impartial to the quarterback just because I feel like the quarterback's the most valuable position on the field. But if I didn't pick whoever wins starting quarterback, then I think I'd go with Coy Cronk. That's why I said I don't think it's that hot of an opinion, that hot of a take. Coy Cronk's a really good offensive lineman. You look at teams within our conference who have been pretty formidable in football the last couple of years. You look at the likes of Iowa. You look at the likes of Ohio State. They have consistently had good to / great offensive linemen at every single position. At all 5 positions in the offensive line, they've had fantastic players. That's obviously backed up by the fact that they all get drafted or end up on pro teams. But a really good offensive line and a really good offensive lineman can actually carry a team compared to having a fantastic wide receiver. I mean, look at the New York Giants this last year. You have Odell Beckham. Yes, he got injured. I understand that. But even before the injury, this Giants sucked, and that's because they had a terrible offensive line. That's why they're going to be terrible this year as well, because they also just don't have a very good offensive line still. But yeah, there you go. There's some NFL talk.
And don't forget, Wes Martin was drafted a few months ago, or last month in the NFL draft. So whether it's Little John or Stepaniak or whoever, those guys are going to have to try to somehow fill in the absence that Wes Martin leaves when he goes to the NFL in this coming fall.
See, I don't know if this team's going to be offensive line is going to be better than last year's. I don't know. I really liked Wes Martin a lot as an offensive lineman, and losing him is a big hole to fill. But if obviously Coy Cronk, Little John, and Stepaniak improve, I think this offensive line could be better, but it's really 50-50 at this point. So, all right, moving on. Defensive line, we got Gavin Everett and Alan Stallings. So, Nathan, why don't you clean the plate with defensive line?
Ooh, I don't know if I could clean the plate with them.
I think they out-eat all
they're
of us.
large fellows.
Everybody that is watching right now could not eat as much food as a defensive lineman can eat. Anyways, that's moving.
No, that's true. Unless the players are listening, in which case, go Hoosiers.
Right.
Look, first of all, I want to clarify one thing. It's Simon Stepaniak, not Steven. I think we said Steven earlier. So So instead,
is it Simon?
It's Simon. So if Mr. and Mrs. Stepaniak are
You know
listening,
what?
I don't want to.
I'm sorry. Noah doesn't know how to spell Simon. Spelled Steven.
Wow.
So
Just throw him under the bus.
I'm gonna absolutely throw him under the bus. He writes the damn script.
Back up over his body while you're at it too. My gosh. All right. Well, we're gonna have some team chemistry issues on our end. Hopefully, this football team doesn't.
Yeah, seriously.
Look, Gavin Everett and
basketball could learn a thing or two.
Man, you're just keeping everyone on their toes.
I'm on form tonight. Anyways, please continue.
All right. Look, no, it's okay. I just got to make sure I don't get in trouble. Look, Everett and Stallings are a couple of guys who are going to play a key role on the defensive line. For those of you who may not be familiar with Gavin Everett too much, he's a fifth-year senior. He's from Center Grove High School. If you recognize that name, it's the same high school that incoming five-star freshman Trace Jackson Davis attended prior to
five-star
for basketball. Yep.
Yeah.
For basketball prior to his upcoming freshman season. Gavin Everett is a guy who is going to step in and really become one of the key parts of the defensive line. He's as someone who's going to play both against the run and against the pass. Everett gained some popularity prior to last season when he was originally a walk-on, and Tom Allen surprised him during one of the practices in August and awarded him a scholarship. Those videos are 100% of the time really nice to watch. And Everett was clearly surprised that IU offered him a scholarship after a few seasons as a walk-on. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how he went semi-viral back in August when there wasn't much going on. So I stumbled across that once again when I was looking up interesting little notes and nuggets about Everett. But make no mistake, he's going to be an impact defensive lineman this coming season. Alan Stallings as well, as I mentioned. Rushing the passer is a really important trait, and Stallings is a guy who can get after the quarterback. And this coming season, whether it's Tate Martell at Ohio State or whoever across the landscape of the Big Ten, that's going to be an important position to fill.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as defensive line goes, this team is going to be definitely not led by the seniors. I think you're going to look at some juniors and sophomores probably to come up and fill in the void. Stallings had the better of the 2 years, better of the two last year. He had 6 tackles for loss for like 22 yards total. So that's always really good. I think Everett had 5.5, 17 yards. And had 20. Stallings had 1 more tackle than Everett did last year. But hopefully our defensive line is more improved than they were last year. This defense is constantly getting better. And I know our defensive line hasn't been a source of strength in the last couple of years, but I also just don't think it's a weakness this year either. So there's that.
Yeah, IU had 22 sacks last year on defense. So you put that over 12 games, it's not even 2 sacks per game. That was 90th in the country. Everett and Stallings are going to play a key role in getting that number up in this coming football season.
I hope they are. All right, moving on to linebacker, we got Raekwon Jones. Raekwon is one of the better defenders we have at IU. I don't think it's it's not too crazy to say that. Last year he played in 10 games. He didn't play in 12 games and had 36 tackles, which was 7th best on the team. Sorry, I can't count super fast, but he's 7th best on the team. Had 4.5 tackles for loss from the linebacker position, which is pretty good, especially for missing 2 games as well. I feel like he would have gotten up towards the 40 amount of tackles, would have been up near the 40 mark, 41, 42 even. So I do think he's going to be a key cog in this defense this year, and a defense that I think should also improve over last year, which is crazy to think because we're losing, such good players like Jonathan Crawford, Marcelino Ball. But I do think that Raekwon Jones is going to be a killer on that defense. How about you, Nathan?
Well, first of all, I have some good news for you. Marcelino Ball is still on the team. He's
okay, I meant sorry. Oh my goodness. I meant TD Roof, not Marcelino Ball. I don't even know how I got them mixed up.
Sorry, no, that's fine. Bad. I just, I think maybe some of the listeners got a bit of a shock.
Like Marcelino Ball left, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry to inform you guys.
Yeah, we're breaking news here. No, yeah. Ball still has 2 seasons left. He's a junior, so he still has plenty of football left in front of him. I think he covered it well, though. I mean, you're talking about a player who's kind of a do-it-all linebacker. You'll see him get after the quarterback. You'll see him tackle the running backs in the ball carrying game. You'll see him snuff out screens if at times. You'll see him dropping coverage, and you'll see him play special teams occasionally. I mean, Raekwon Jones is Tom Allen's dream, if you ask me. This is a guy who fills in a bunch of different spots. I'm not going to play this game anymore, but he's from Lynn Haven, Florida. 6'2" linebacker, built for the Big Ten. I'm expecting Raekwon Jones to continue his ascension. He was pretty quiet his first couple of seasons. Last year, he really developed, and this coming season, he should be a real key cog in that IU defense.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to the secondary. I'll let you take this first, but I think the names that you should look at from this, these 3 names, Ashawn Riggins, Khalil Bryant, and Andre Brown Jr., has got to be Khalil Bryant. I think he was the better of the 3. But anyways, take it from here.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure who I would pick to be the best out of that trio. I think all 3 guys are important, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of the approach I'm going to take. Look, like you mentioned a couple minutes ago, Jonathan Crawford is no longer on the defense. Crawford moving on to the NFL. So, whether it's Khalil Bryant who takes over in that safety spot, which is what he did last year, or, maybe Tom Allen decides to move a corner back to safety. I'm not sure what he's drawing up right now in his office during the summer months. But regardless, look, the Big Ten, I mean, you saw it last year. There were a number of really strong passing quarterbacks. Last year, we had seen Dwayne Haskins. We saw Trace McSorley, all these guys, and we saw Purdue's passing offense as well really take a step forward. So this secondary is going to be an important part of the team. I'm looking forward to seeing Andre Brown, more so because I remember on a podcast about a month ago when we had our football contributor Blake Betzner on. He had mentioned Andre Brown was a guy to watch out for this year. So I'm gonna take his advice and keep an eye on number 14. Andre Brown's gonna be a corner that I'm gonna watch. Also, don't forget, while we're talking about defensive backs, even though he's not a senior, Reese Taylor, who was Indiana's Mr. Football a couple of years ago, he played quarterback last season, and Tom Allen decided to switch him over to DB this coming year. So I'm gonna see how that goes as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. He plays a lot of positions. I think he played a couple snaps at DB last year, and I also believe he played a couple snaps at wide receiver, running back, and quarterback. So they can say they're slotting him at DB, but I think they're just going to play him on the field just because he's just that much of an impact player. That's as far as Reese Taylor goes. But as far as secondary goes, and our seniors, Ashawn Riggins, I don't think we've talked about him a lot. He played in 11 games last year, had 20 tackles. He's obviously going to be behind these 2 other seniors as far as production goes in the secondary. I still think he's a name to look at, especially, I'm an Eagles fan. And so last year we dealt with tons of injuries on the defensive side, and still made the playoffs and still played well. So, you got like in football, you got to have really good depth. And I think Ashawn Riggins is very good depth, or if he does actually start at one of the corner positions, I think he'll see a much bigger jump in production this year. Don't you think so?
That's an interesting point. And Riggins is a guy who, oddly enough, his freshman season statistically was kind of his best season.
Yeah.
I remember a game in Columbus, which is near where Riggins is from. He's an Ohio kid. I believe he picked off JT Barrett at the Horseshoe. Is it the Horseshoe or the Shoe? I think it's
the Horseshoe. Yeah.
Maybe it's the Shoe.
It's a Horseshoe.
Oh, all right. Thanks. Riggins picked off JT Barrett, who, I mean, I know he's maybe somewhat of a forgotten name nationally because, he's not really thriving in the NFL, but, that was a big play at the time, but that was his freshman year back in 2016. Since then, he hasn't had an interception, and he hasn't been able to play 12 games like he did his freshman year. So whether it's going to be in the secondary or on special teams, I think Riggins is going to I'm going to be interested to see how he makes an impact on the defensive side of the field. Perhaps hearing some coaching from a new coordinator like IU's got this coming season with Kane Womack might help him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got a soft spot for Ashawn Riggins in that interception. I was actually at that game with the band, and I can tell you the hush of the crowd that went over 105,000 people when Ashawn went into the end zone was fantastic. Of course, I couldn't really realize it at the time because I was losing my mind in the stands. But no, that was definitely a highlight. I think we were up like 14 at one point in that game. At the Horseshoe, it's like, oh my goodness, it's gonna happen. And then in classic Indiana football fashion, we ended up losing the game by like I think like 14. I was like, how did this even happen? But anyways, thank you, Ashawn Riggins, for that wonderful 30 seconds. Moving on to special teams, we got Hayden Whitehead and Logan Justice. Nathan, I'll let you cap this off. I do believe that our special teams is going to be much improved this year, don't you think?
That's I like that you mentioned that because football more than ever seems to be a three-phase game nowadays. Offense, defense, special teams. You've got to be able to hit in all aspects of that. You saw how important special teams can be when guys like Griffin Oaks or Mitch Ewald from a few years back, when they're constantly knocking kicks in, that really helps the team. As a Bears fan, I can tell you that having a good kicker makes a difference.
Thank you.
I'm not bitter.
Thank you, Cody Parkman.
So that's Logan Justice, who we'll talk about in a minute. But Hayden Whitehead, who's coming off a solid season as a punter last year, he was a Ray Guy Award watch list nominee before last season. I would not be surprised if he got the same recognition in a few months before the 2019 season starts. The fifth-year Aussie senior, he's going to be relied upon. Look, as much as we'd like, not every possession is going to end in a touchdown or even a field goal attempt. So whether he's punting from midfield and trying to pin the opposing offense back, that's going to be important. Or if he needs to flip the field with a boomer, Whitehead's a guy that I'm going to pay attention to. Logan Justice is someone who I'm really hoping can take that next step this coming season. I remember seeing in the spring game, he was knocking in kicks from beyond 40 yards. If he can add that to his game, that's going to be a really valuable weapon for the IU offense in the season to come.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go. You were talking about your MVP of the team. I'm gonna change my MVP of the team to Hayden Whitehead.
Ooh, I like that.
Here is why. I think we're gonna be relying heavily on our defense this year and our special teams to win games. We have a new offensive coordinator who's implementing a new offensive system. It's gonna take a while to put in place and get people comfortable. I do think that we're going to be in a lot of very close games thanks to our defense, because I do believe this defense is going to be fantastic this year. I think the team in general is going to be great, but we're going to be in a lot of low-scoring, long, knockout, drag-out, sort of games, and we're going to need to play field position. And Hayden Whitehead and pinning people down within the 5-yard line is going to be key to give this defense a chance for a safety, a sack, a turnover, whatever it is, even a 3-and-out to play field position so we give Logan Justice a chance to kick some field goals to give us some comfortable leads, especially in those close games. So I'm going to change my MVP to Hayden Whitehead because I think he's going to win us some games, and if he doesn't do very well, he could definitely lose us some games as well. So
that's interesting. I like that. And just one thing I forgot to mention, Justice was named to the second team All Big Ten list as, in Athlon Sports preseason all-conference publication that was released about a week ago at this time. So,
nice.
This is not a guy that we're just hyping up because he is what he is. He went 15 of 18 last year from field goal range. So Athlon Sports reciprocated that performance with the second team all-conference mention. Coy Cronk was also given second team All-Big Ten. So you can kind of see how a couple of guys we mentioned ranked as far as the Big Ten goes.
All right, that is it for football. So we're going to move on to who won the week. So Nathan, who won the week for this past week in IU sports?
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting options as usual right now. Mid-May, late May. There are a lot of different things going on both in pro and college. I'm going to give a shout out to the IU track and field team. They sent 14 people to the outdoor track and field national meet, which will take place in about a couple of weeks. I'm not going to go into detail for each person, but I will mention the names of the qualifiers. The names are Adam Kulan, Brock Mamoser, Ben Veach, Nasia Ford, Maggie Allen. And then, on day 2 qualifying were Gilles Etienne, Eric Bethea, Teddy Browning, Ken Hagan, Joe Murphy, Kyle Mao, Kayla Dawson, Maddie Pollard, and Leah Moran. So these are all various outdoor track and field meets. Your sprinting, your distance, your jumps, your throws, all sorts of different stuff. The NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Championships will take place in Austin, Texas, starting on Wednesday, June 5th. And wrap up on Saturday, June 8th. So, usually around this time, we like to give a shout out to non-basketball or non-football. So the outdoor track and field athletes did a sensational job in Jacksonville a few days ago, qualifying for the national meet.
Absolutely. My track bros. Let's go. All right. So I got a store shout out. Look, right now, for limited time, 15% off with the code 2019 off season. That's 2019 off season in all caps in the Indiana HQ store. 15% off purchases. Did I do that right, Nathan?
I loved it. Yeah, 15%, just to make it clear, not 50, but it's 15, still a discount.
Yes.
Yeah,
we're not giving you half price, people. All right, and we got families to feed here.
Maybe Black Friday or something. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. We gotta talk to Rob about that. All right, moving on to basketball. Finally, from moving on from football to basketball, or who won the week? So we went football, track, now basketball. So basketball seniors. There's only 2 of them, so we can go a little bit more in depth in each player. We'll start off with the smaller of the 2 players, and we're going to go with Devontae Green to start off with. Of course, had a interesting year last year, including getting suspended and missing the Michigan game, but also being our best player in the last month. So some highs and lows this season for Devontae. So Nathan, what are you expecting from Devontae in this upcoming season?
Yeah, how much time you got? I mean, he's a fascinating player. He shot 39% from 3 last season, and he took 102 shots beyond the arc. So for a team that's going to lose Romeo Langford and Jawan Morgan next season, Green's going to be a guy who has to pick up the scoring load. We saw what he's capable of in the Big Ten tournament. In the Big Ten tournament, a game that IU desperately needed against Ohio State. Green stepped up and knocked down 9 for 15 from the field, and he scored 26 points. He scored in double digits each of the last 7 games IU played last season, including 3 double-digit performances in the NIT. Yep. We saw him regularly hit three-pointers when the line was moved back to the NBA range in the NIT. Yep. I mean, if he's hitting 40% of his threes in the NIT, and officially he went 6 for 15, so yeah, I mean 40%. And he was hitting that percentage from NBA range. My gosh, this is a guy who can be a real jolt offensively to this team. Last year he averaged 9.4 points per game. If he doesn't average double digits next year, something horrible happened.
Yeah, I hope he does average double digits next year. I'm also going to be concerned. But yeah, I mean, he averaged what? 9.4 points per game this year, 41% from 3. There's not much you can ask for the kid. He's definitely going to be leading us as far as outside shooting goes next year. Of course, we do know he has some good moments and some bad moments. But I honestly think Senior Devontae has finally figured out how to coexist with Coach Archie Miller. And we will see the best of him in this upcoming year, and will lead us to a reasonable season, and in which he will cement his legacy in IU as being one of the most fascinating players to play in the Cream and Crimson. So moving on, De'Ron Davis, our big man, the last of the 2 seniors. Yes, there's only 2 seniors. I believe De'Ron is going to be the national media darling of this team. So every team has one player where everybody just has the googly eyes for. I believe that De'Ron is going to be the player from this team that the media picks up on, because not only because of his personality and the way he shows emotion on the court and, just the way he plays, but because he is a classic big man in a game that is moving to outside shooting and stretching the floor and cutting and moving. De'Ron is going to sit in the post and is going to bruise defenders down there. And he's going to stick out like a sore thumb with all these stretch 4s running around all over the place. And I think the media is going to love him. I believe we'll see definitely an increase in the minutes he plays per game, the points he averages per game, the rebounds he averages per game. And hopefully his free throw percentage, because I believe his free throw percentage was 57%, which is not great. So if he could get that into the 60s, we'll have a great year next year. And it'll be fun to watch him and Trace Jackson Davis blossom as the season goes on.
Yeah, and what IU sort of loses in Langford and Jawan Morgan leaving, you hope they can add in improvements that Devontae Green and De'Ron Davis make. I think Davis is a guy who hopefully can have a healthy offseason where he has no setbacks and he can work with Archie Miller and the assistant coaches day in, day out in order to improve, in order to really get into the groove of the offense, which he was kind of held back last year. He picked up an injury last summer, and that kind of held him back near the offseason. You hope and wish that in the season to come, IU's front court can be a difficult tandem of De'Ron Davis, Joey Brunk, who's transferring in from Butler, Race Thompson, Jerome Hunter, and Trace Jackson Davis. If you can get that group along with a guy like Justin Smith, it's going to give other teams problems in the Big Ten. Look, it may not always be perfect or beautiful looking when you watch this IU basketball team play. I, for one, love up and down basketball and three-point shooting. But when you have depth in your front court, it allows those guys to play aggressively. It allows them to go for block shots and try to rebound the basketball because if they get into foul trouble, you can bring in someone else off the bench. That sort of depth IU didn't have last season, whether it's due to injuries or poor play or foul trouble or whatever. So I'm looking forward to seeing those guys all surround De'Ron Davis because make no mistake about it, Duran's going to be the team leader next year. He's captain Indiana next season. Duran Davis, even though he's from Colorado, he's going to be the captain. He's going to be the leader. And it'll be interesting to see how guys like Trace Jackson Davis and Jerome Hunter and Race Thompson, young guys, how they take to Duran as the team leader.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting. I'm going to go out and do my predictions for what I think they'll score, rebound, and assist. Assist for Devontae. I don't think Duran's going to get that many assists, even though he's a very good, underrated passing big man.
How about you give me like blocks for Duran Davis per game next year?
Blocks? All right. I will go for Devontae, I'll go 15 points per game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. I think that's what I got. Or maybe I'll do 15 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds for Devontae per game. So 15, 4, and 4. And for Duran, I'll go. Well, I'll assume his minutes will go up from 13.6 more to like 25 a game, or like 22 a game. So with that increase, I believe he'll be a walking 11 and 7 and 2 next year. So that's 11.7 rebounds, 2 blocks a game. So have Devontae with 15 points a game and Duran with 11. What are you thinking?
Man, that's interesting. Initially I kind of was taken aback by using 15 points per game for Devontae Green. And then I realized I'm not really sure as far as the backcourt goes, who's going to shoot the ball as much as him. I think he's going to have the green light basically whenever IU crosses half court.
Absolutely.
Look, in all seriousness, I think I'm going to even bump that up a little bit more. I think he's going to score 16 and a half per game next season. I think if he hits threes, that number will go up even higher. From a rebounding standpoint, I think maybe I'm a little bit less optimistic than you for Devontae. So I'll say 16 and a half points per game. I'll say 2.8 rebounds. And as far as the assists go, I'll stick to something like 3.5 assists per game. I think IU's going to have a number of ball handlers in the backcourt between Al Durham and Rob Finney. So I'm not so sure how much of an assisting role Green will have. But, he'll get some just from a factor of being on the court. For Duran Davis, look, if he plays 22 minutes a game, I'll take that deal right now. This is a guy who per 40 minutes last season averaged 17 and 7. So you take those numbers, that's per 40 minutes. So you can kind of, do the math and divide numbers how you want. But if he can stay on the court and he can avoid injury and he can avoid foul trouble,
it's a big if.
Duran Davis can be a real it is. But he can be a real impact player. I'm gonna say for minutes per game, I'm gonna wait and see. I'm gonna say it when I see it. So for now, I'm gonna say he's only gonna get 17 minutes per game. And in that case, I think he'll be at about 8 points, 6 rebounds. But his biggest contribution to me will be off the court, where he helps with the development of guys like Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson and Justin Smith, being that leader, being that glue guy on the bench or in the locker room that, we see great teams every year. Just last year in the Final Four, we saw Virginia and Texas Tech have those guys. You need them to win. And I think Duran Davis is going to be that player.
All right. Cool. So that about wraps it up for our 90th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. We'll be back next Monday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. Big thanks to our live audience for coming out and participating in the chat. We see you guys. Make sure to stay tuned through updates on Twitter. Visit our website, indianhq.com, and subscribe so you can get these episodes right to your phone. Send us your questions of the audience on what questions you have, and we'll have them on our next episode. Most importantly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook. Tell a friend, share our links. Your support is how we grow this podcast to reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Peace.